Welcome to Get Your Pulls, number 64. Hey Dan, you know what was a cool computer system?
What was that?
The Apple One. You thought I was going to say Commodore 64, didn't you?
I really did.
Well, you just got burned bad.
Really got me there.
Yes.
Punked by the mood here on episode or issue 64. Since all comic podcasts have to call their episodes issues, I guess we feel obliged to do that as well.
Yeah.
Not really
true.
blazing any new trails there, are we, Mooch?
Or what if they're just all the same? What if this is just issue 1.64? That's right. Maybe we'll start changing it up.
Volumizing.
Yes, but anywho, it's a huge week for comics,
Yeah.
as you people may know.
Huge on the wallet if you got a pull list.
Yeah, big on the wallet, big on the news. If you thought that just based on the sheer number of pulls and events that happened this month that's all we'd have to talk about, well, Twitter graced us with multiple controversies this week. So we'll jump into the news. Start out with some less controversial news. A couple of short things here. As if you've been a longtime fan of the Get Your Pulls podcast, which we hope you are, then you've probably heard us talk about Marvel, about how it is our belief that Captain Marvel, based on the current run by Kelly Sue DeConnick, would be a great first all-woman movie by Marvel. And once again, for about the fifth time since we started the pod, the big guys agree, as it was announced this week that it's very likely there will be a Captain Marvel movie somewhere during Phase 3 or Phase 4. And the big rumor was that they've already been talking to Katie Sackhoff. I think that's how you say her name.
Yes,
I mean,
from Battlestar Galactica fame. I'm not real familiar with the new Battlestar, but everybody said it was awesome. So, you know, anyone who I would trust's opinion on a sci-fi TV show loved it.
Yeah, she played Starbuck, and that's in, or as I will always know her, no matter what, no matter if she goes on to win an Oscar, which doesn't seem very, I don't think that's going to happen, but if she goes on to win an Oscar, make a sex tape, if she gets married to, like, the King of England, nothing will ever make me not think of her as one of the co-stars of the shittiest Halloween movie ever, Halloween Resurrection. So
hard to live that one down. Yeah, that is
Yes.
the most infamous, where Buster Rhymes whips Michael Myers' ass and all that good stuff.
her awful acting was actually one of the worst parts outside of just the plot. But she's a lot better. I've seen her in some other stuff. She's got a lot better. She's on a new A&E show called Longmire that I've heard some peeps say was pretty good. I mean, it's pretty hard to find a show these days that somebody doesn't say is really good. But anyways, another you heard it first from the people here on Potty Humor at Get Your Pulls. Been predicting for months that would make sense, and it looks like it's a race. It looks like maybe, as a lot of things with Marvel, anytime DC falters on something, Marvel definitely likes to poke them. So with the fact that they're having so much trouble getting Wonder Woman to the screen, it looks like Marvel might be trying to beat them and get one of their characters up there first, which would actually probably be a huge blow, because
Yeah, Carol Danvers, strong female lead, and certainly with Marvel's hot property brand right now, you would think that if that movie's a success, it kind of does leave DC sucking wind.
yeah, you got to get Wonder Woman made first, DC. You just got to do it. But on to some other news, the Harvey Awards were this week. Basically, they're the equivalent of like the Screen Actors Guild for comics. It's all the voting is other professionals in the comics business.
Is it because all the people on award committees are two-faced bastards? Oh!
Nice. And with that, we'll see you next week. Get your pulse. No. Yeah, but not a lot of surprises. Saga pretty much won everything. They won between Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. They won Best Artist, Best Writer, Best Ongoing Series, Best New Series, Best Single Issue, Saga #1, which was awesome, but I don't think that was the best issue of comics for the year, but whatevs. I don't fucking write a comic, so I didn't get a vote. Best Colorist for Fiona Staples, and yeah, and that's like half the awards. If you want to read the rest of them, go to like any comic website that there is. But almost all the exciting ones, they won.
And by the way, Harvey Awards, I'm just kidding. I'm sure you're all a bunch of wonderful human beings. I don't know any of you or who is on your award committee. But I had to go for the obvious Harvey Dent joke. Come on.
Yeah, vote for us in 2019 when we fucking finally finish one of our ideas. But we swear by then we'll be done. But anyway, moving on. We got two big Twitter controversies of the week, one bigger than the other. J.H. Williams and Hayden Blackman, unfortunately, due to creative differences, are leaving Batwoman, which is sad
Ouch.
because it's been a super enjoyable comic. It's actually one that been getting in, didn't get in on the ground floor, so I've just been catching up on trades, but have both the first couple hardcovers, have the third one coming in a couple weeks, and enjoyed it a lot. It's definitely one of probably my top 10 DC books, and it's pretty awesome just due to the fact. I mean, it's very different. It's the most probably unique of out probably I would say it and Animal Man are the most unique out of all the new 52 titles. It's something totally different, even though it's in the Bat universe. It's a totally different book. All of the different ways that they go about doing the art in the book is really crazy. It's a lot different than anybody else. They have the same thing that only the Flash also does, or they have like the crazy looking panel that's got the credit page, reminds you of like a fucking movie from the 60s or 70s. It's always really nice looking. So it's one of their most unique books and one of their most well written. But unfortunately, creators are gone, which seems to be a thing at DC. I mean, it happens. I mean, it doesn't happen as often as people say. I mean, it's like every 6 months or something, since the new 52 started. Somebody's left, like a big book. I mean, I know a lot. There's been lots of changes on some of the smaller books, but I mean, I don't think a lot of people care. But I think this is, other than when Gail Simone was going to be off Batgirl, and then she got Twittered back onto it. This is the most high, and then Superman, which nobody really liked anyways. George Perez left, but this is probably the most high profile, walkout at DC when it comes to like a book that is beloved by everyone. It won an Eisner Award.
Yeah, and J.H. Williams has been, I mean, even before the new 52, I want to maybe say Gail Simone was writing Batwoman at
It
the
was
time.
Rucka.
Oh, it was Greg Rucka, that's
Yeah,
right.
it's
Yeah.
2006 when Batwoman debuted in Detective Comics. J.H. Williams is the artist and Rucka was writing.
I mean, you're losing a defining creator on that character, and you
Yeah.
don't think they're going to have a hard time recovering from that because, I mean, without that unique slant and a unique person writing her and really giving her the voice that she needs to have, does Kate Kane even stand out in the Bat universe? She could easily fall into the background without the right people behind her.
Yeah, and it's a bummer. I mean, it's just another one of those that you say. I mean, I think it sucks. I think DC is making a mistake, but at the same time, it's another one of those where it's like, look, it's their characters. I mean, they apparently, there's always two sides of the story. The story that's come out from Dan Didio has been that they wanted, her to be more part of the Bat universe, which personally, reading the book, part of the strength is, that it's never tied into events and stuff. Like, that's one of the things, if you pick up a trade, there's not a random issue where she's fighting the Joker and then back to her story. It's been something that I think has been a strength of the book, is it's kind of been out there on her own. But, it's also, it sells decent, but it's not like a top seller. And it seems like all those books that are tied into like, the bad events and somehow tied into the other things, do, generally sell better or at least get huge sales bumps. And, what you can get, I mean, you haven't got like a whole like huge statement from Didio. I mean, he did say that, what you could take from it is it sounds like, Williams and Blackman didn't want the character, to be a more in the Bat family. They wanted it left alone and out there on its own. And they, and then they had the same things other people have said. They said there have been numerous last second, changes. Like they said, up until the point to where they had stories that had been planned for months and months, and then a month before the comic comes out, they're like, no, you can't end it that way. You need to do it this way. So I mean, I could, understand the frustration. But then the big controversy that happened was, they posted they were leaving. And I don't blame the creators entirely on this. It's mostly internet, but a little, because I think they kind of knew what they were doing. They said that, the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back was they wanted to have Kate Kane get married to her new 52 fiance. Actually, she had already been engaged, Maggie Sawyer, one of the who works at the Gotham City Police Department. And they wouldn't let her do it. And and the way that the news, of course, the way that the internet likes to sensationalize everything, and then how I think, which is the news on TV does it, but the internet's almost even worse. because I mean, internet websites are in the business of just getting as many clicks as possible. They need people to click on their stories and hit their ads, and that's the way that they make money. So, I think very irresponsibly, many of them simply listed, DC creators leave Batwoman over DC's stance against gay marriage, which immediately, immediately Batwoman becomes trending on Twitter, which is how I found out about it. I'm like, why the fuck is Batwoman trending? Is she going to be in a movie? And it's nope, this is it. And then you find out, you go and read the statements, and seconds later, J.H. Williams clarified. He's like, I just want to be specific. DC isn't against same-sex marriage. They just don't want their characters married. They're against marriage, in general, which DiDio came out and said, their characters, the New 52 is still very new, even though it's 26 issues in. It's probably a year or two into it. The way they view their characters, they're all in between, your main characters are in between the ages of 25 and 30 in that range. And they, and it's an editorial edict. They just don't want them married because they think that it's going to limit the stories they're going to be able to tell. Whether you agree with that or not, that's their stance and what they said they've been telling everyone since the beginning of the New 52 that, under no circumstances you couldn't get the characters married. It is what it is, but, the thing that's crappy is all these different comic websites, which I would credit, like IGN didn't do it, Comic Book Resources didn't do it, but the majority of the rest of them, and other ones in general, and especially, as you can imagine, a lot of big feminine websites, pro-feminist websites, simply ran with that headline. And even the ones that clarified in there, later on, J.H. Williams said this, but then they would leave the question, J.H. Williams, the creator of the book, said that DC did not come out against gay marriage and just don't want their characters married. DC came out and said that, but you can take from it what you want. It's like everyone involved said that wasn't a thing and that wasn't a big reason why this happened.
Yeah, just because it was a part of the issue, they're trying to make it the issue. Really is. And I hate that the characters or that the creators are leaving and that book is going to change because it was so fascinating and unique. But I don't think DC's wrong. I mean, that's a go to wrestling, like for where I know what I'm familiar with. You don't want your characters or in real life relationships a lot of the time because if you're selling their sex appeal and at least the paying customers, the females in particular, know that they're romantically entangled with somebody, that takes them off the market. That makes them less available. In a sense, that psychology works the same way in comics.
Yeah, I mean, I could say that. You can see that to an extent, and then you can also see, also just that. I mean, it does. I mean, if Batwoman, I heard they're bringing back Renee Montoya soon, who in the old continuity had died, but was a really prominent lesbian character. Heard she's coming back. They want her to be an option. Maggie Sawyer used to be, somebody that she was involved with, or who she came out to. That was the reason Montoya felt comfortable coming out in old Gotham Central. They want you to think, oh, well, now that she's back, maybe that's going to cause some tension. I mean, that's, it is what it is. I mean, who knows, like, what would have been better? I mean, I tend to going to trust the creators probably if they would have married the characters. They probably had some great plans for it. I mean, I see the point that DC had the opportunity to kind of take a stand on a big issue. And actually, when you think about it, probably would have sold more issues. It would have been front page news that they had the lesbian characters get married. It would have been the first lesbian marriage in comics and mainstream comics. I mean, that's something that could have, like, translated to dollars. But, they stuck with their editorial edict. And like I said, even though I trusted it would have probably been better that way, that's not their responsibility. A lot of people are also saying now, it's like, well, you have the chance to do this, so you have to do it. I mean, that's not true. They have this, it's their characters. They have the stories that they want to tell. And I guess the proof will be in the dollars. We'll see whoever takes over, if the book sells worse, if it sells better. I mean, I obviously want better stories, but as we saw, Winter Soldier was one of the best books on the shelves, and it got canned because nobody was buying it. I mean,
I was.
Yes, there's lots of books that are really good books that get canned, and when it comes down to it, both Marvel and DC. Sometimes people forget about Marvel because they like to pile on DC these days. Both those companies. I mean, the bottom line is they're trying to sell as many comics as possible, and they think it's going to sell more comics, and that's it. And then they immediately announced kind of a bummer. J.H. Williams said that he had planned on staying through issue 26. To finish up his current story, and that he would, have, what he had announced, it would set a bold new direction for the character, And apparently DC was like, we don't think we're going to let you, so issue 24 will be the end, which he says is a cliffhanger, so they're just ending his run. In the middle, it seems to be a pretty bloody divorce here, which, I mean, I think is what you can expect. If you go to Twitter to, like, prematurely announce, hey, 5 minutes ago, I quit DC, they're probably not going to stick with you and let you do what you're wanting to do. And, so yeah, so it's ending, and starting with issue 25, Mark and Draco will be taking over as the writer of Batwoman. I don't think they've announced who's going to take over the art yet. Um, but he's most famous for writing the series Manhunter at DC, which was also, I believe, the lead character in that was a lesbian. Anyways, he's an openly gay comic writer, like one of the, I guess, the few. I think they said at the time that he came out, he was one of like the few openly gay comic writers. So, you know, that seems that if they're going to announce somebody to take this over, that might be a step in the right direction. If maybe they're trying to like appease some of the people that are mad because they went in that direction, you would think, which makes
Sounds like a diplomatic move. Yes,
it does, but it also makes sense to me. I mean, I've always felt like I love Batgirl because Gail Simone reading Batgirl, it seems like it's from a woman's perspective, and you can tell. I know people are going to get bummed out and be like, everybody's the same. But no, if you read a comic that's written by a woman about a woman, it feels way more like a real woman than if a man writes it because she's a woman. And I think in this situation, even though it's a man, someone who is homosexual is probably going to be able to write a homosexual character in a way that's going to feel more real to you than most people can write.
Well, there's things they feel and have experienced and been through that you not being in that world can just never relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the next issue is actually going to be tied into Zero Year, so it's like they immediately get their wish. And I also have a feeling that it's going to be a good book simply because so much has been made of it, and Didio has been going so hard on people on Twitter and stuff. Like they're gonna put everything they can into making it a great book. I wouldn't be surprised if in fucking 3 issues, if it sucked, they were like, Scott Snyder's writing it and Jim Lee's drawing it. Fuck you. Like I think it's more of a personal issue to make the book better than it was before. And then the last bit of news, we won't spend as much time on this because there were so many pulls, but there's another huge stir over a DC drawing contest. I don't know if you saw this, but DC held a contest for the Zero issue of Harley Quinn.
I heard of said contest. I heard of no such stir.
Well, it became a thing. I think it was really outshadowed by the J.H. Williams Batwoman controversy, but basically the contest was you were going to draw 4 panels depicting Harley Quinn in different situations, and the winner was going to have their art included in Zero Year. I don't know if they get to draw the issue or maybe an alt cover. I don't know the specifics of the contest, but that was the thing. And basically the panels were, they went from Harley Quinn in different situations. And the last panel, the one that got all the controversy, was Harley Quinn is supposed to be drawn naked in a bathtub with all sorts of different things around which could kill her, like a radio hanging above the bathtub, some other electric devices, some knives and swords, and then she was going to have like a switch in her hand, and she was supposed to like on her face, have like a look of like, I don't give a fuck, like, she was about to like commit suicide but didn't care, which drove people off the rails that day. People were getting so mad about it. There was a whole lot of things, anywhere from you should never do anything. Like, I mean, a lot of people argued they were sexualizing suicide. A lot of people argued that, you shouldn't make any sort of jokes or take any fun about, someone committing suicide, all these different things. And it went on for a while, but unlike this controversy where Didio, who's not beloved and people kind of hate in general, came on, people got more mad. Jim Lee, possibly the most beloved guy that's currently in comics of his generation, came on and in about like a 15 message Twitter thing, explain why looking at one panel in a comic, if you haven't read comics before, or if you have, then you should have already known this. By looking at one panel of a comic, you can't determine what the whole story is. How they would never poke fun at suicide or try to sexualize it in the way that he said. He's like, it's up to the artist how they draw it, how they're going to make her look, and all this stuff. How it was part of a bigger story. He's like, this is one panel. These are 4 panels on one page of a 22-issue story. You don't know what's leading to that. And also, you obviously don't understand the character Harley Quinn if you don't think that's something that she might do. That she might not play Russian roulette or something like that. Like, that's totally in her character, it may not be what you want her to be or what you've like thought about her before, but if you read books, then it shouldn't be a surprise that she may possibly, I mean, if she was sitting there playing Russian roulette with a gun, would you be like, that's Harley Quinn? I mean, she's pretty much doing the same thing. And,
Yeah, I just say, and I am normally not callous on such issues, but get the fuck over it. Like, really.
yes.
Like, fucking who cares? It's a picture that somebody fucking drew about the Joker's girlfriend, who's a fictional character, who is fucking a villain and is crazy, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I think the majority of the
who fucking
outrage,
cares?
the majority of the outrage came from men and women alike who have somehow adopted this idea that in comic books, look, I totally understand. You don't want every comic book character to look like they have Playboy tits and all they do is like, jump around and use their sexuality to make everything possibly happen and they seem like idiots. I agree. And if you actually read most of the comics, at least the good ones that I read, they aren't written that way. The majority of women in comics aren't these days. But there does seem to be a huge amount of people that think that every character needs to be drawn with no makeup, wearing a fucking fur coat where you can barely see their face, where you can barely make out that they're a chick, and that they need to be like professors of like every single subject, working at university, and solve all their crimes by coming up with like an equation. Because if it's something, anything more than that, if they smile at someone, then you're sexualizing them. And I think that's, you know, I think the people who actually are in comics or who read comics who took this about this Harley Quinn contest that's those people, and who gives a shit what those people want anyways.
It's just the, like, I guess it's the dichotomy of, oh, comics are supposed to be some kind of fine art. And I mean, like, when they accomplish that, that's fucking fantastic. But they're cheesecake, essentially, for dudes. I mean, and that's great that, like, that, I mean, that, oh god, if anybody hears that comment, they're gonna fucking jump all over me. But, what I'm saying is that
They're for men and women. That's the part of it. It's like
they are what they are.
Yes, that's the thing. Is that I mean, if you think about anything, I mean, if you think about really hard about why you like the things you like, whether it be movie characters, people in comics, the athletes that you like, you know, you either want to be that person or you would like to like that person to be your partner. In general, not everybody, or you would like to be around them, you'd like to hang out with them. Like it's people that you wish you were or you wish you knew. And so that's what's drawn. I mean, that's the way that it is. You know, you draw someone like, in a perfect situation, you draw like Batman and you make him a person that's like any dude would like to be Batman. Any woman would love to be with Batman because that's the perfect guy. It's the same thing with the girls. Wonder Woman, she's awesome. She's strong. She's smart. Any girl would love to be Wonder Woman. Any dude would love for Wonder Woman to be his woman. I mean, that's with anything. And I think it's also because comics are like this community that attracts people that are, a lot of people that consider themselves artistic, which there are tons of, and intellectuals, which there are tons of. They've all of a sudden tried to make it by these certain rules. I mean, going and watching a Hugh Grant movie is the exact same thing. If you go and watch, some sort of like love movie, and the reason that you love Hugh Grant is because you think he's great looking and that you think he has his personality. That's the same thing they're doing when they draw Harley Quinn in a sexy outfit.
Yeah,
It's the same thing.
And to another effect, everyone likes to go so batshit insane over the fact that they're sexualizing and they're sexual. What's wrong with that? Why is that a bad thing? Like I don't understand the freakish fucking weird fucking repressed rage hang-ups that so many people still have with sex and sexualizing things. It's like is it because the comics don't have a voice and they can't speak out and say you're sexualizing me? Because if it's a woman doing it of her own free will, then I say more power to her. But because they're fictional, is that the issue?
I think there's this crazy thing where now people want you, and for men and women, but more specifically women, because that's way more the issue generally, is that, you're supposed to like think of someone, like if you meet a woman who's smart and funny and all these other things, like that's going to attract you to them more than them being just physically attractive. But if they are physically attractive and they know they are and they use that to make you like them more, that's fine. Like that's just natural. It's not a bad thing. It's totally natural. And in general, man, I mean, I think it's just people that, I mean, I'm not a fucking great looking dude, but it doesn't make me mad when some good looking dude gets a girl that I know is smart simply because he's good looking. I know he's an idiot. I know he's an asshole. I know that there's no way that someone could like talking to him for more than 2 seconds other than to feel smart about themselves. Yet, someone who I respect as like a woman may love the guy. And that's just the way that, I mean, that's just natural. That's just the way that the world works. Uh, and I think, I mean, this is just one of the many, many things where people are sitting around with their finger on the trigger, looking for a reason to call bullshit and get mad. Like people gotta have something to be mad about. Like that's just a new thing. I feel like every day it's part of people's daily routine. It's like I gotta go on the internet and find something to be pissed about
what
today.
What can I feign outrage about today?
And this is what they picked.
Really affect me.
Yeah, so this is what they picked. But anywho, I'll be getting the Harley Quinn book with or without suicide panel in it. Hopefully it's good. Jimmy Palmiotti's writing it. Amanda Conner, very respected woman in comics, is drawing it. Who, the two of them came up with this contest and panel. That's it. A really famous, loved woman in comics was a big part of why this contest exists. So, tweet them, get mad at them, leave Jim Lee alone. Anyways, to our mega pulls, to our billion pulls.
We once had Pullmageddon, now we have a Pullcalypse.
Nice.
How do you want to do this? Because we normally run it down Muji's books and then my books, but we have so many like themed books and books that go together. You want to like start it right off the bat. Everybody wants to know about Villains Month. We could hit them right over the head with that out the gate.
Yeah, we could do that. Go over my Villains Month books real quick. I had 4. I was pretty happy with all 4. Not surprisingly, the one I actually liked the most was probably the Green Arrow Count Vertigo. And no surprise was that it was part of the actual story. It was written by Jeff Lemire, art by Andrea Sorrentino. So it was actually part of the run by the regular creators, something they had planned. And it turned out the best. The same as next week I get the Riddler, and it's going to be by Snyder Capullo. And I can only imagine that it'll probably be the best one I get next week. But this one fit right in. It was a great story. It really gave you a great background on Count Vertigo. It was, if you're reading the current run, this added to it a lot. So, that's really all you can hope these things do. Next one, Detective Comics, Poison Ivy #1. Enjoyed it. It was a pretty simple story. It was not really touching on any new ground. You kind of got like a half origin story on Poison Ivy, and then also what she's currently doing to catch you up. If you haven't been reading Suicide Squad, catch you up on what she's doing in the New 52 right now. And I enjoyed it. It wasn't a bad book, but it wasn't like super entertaining. Darkseid #1, did enjoy it. You got an origin on Darkseid. I thought that was cool. You get to see him get mad. It actually was pretty close. His origin, while different thematically wise, was pretty close to the God Butcher from Thor.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of had the same deal. Was like Darkseid decided to start, going after all the gods because they fucked him over and give him a shitty life, and so, he became a god himself, and it was good. It was one of my favorite covers of the week. I really liked the way that they drew Darkseid on the front. Like, he's pretty badass looking on it. So.
Yeah, no joke on the 3D covers as well. If you were lucky enough to get those, they were short-ordered. But if you're lucky enough to get them or still can find them out there, I highly recommend them. They're really worth the extra dollar price tag. Just a really unique thing that they've never really done before, and I really dug them.
Yeah, absolutely. And tip, don't put them in your car. I heard some people... They've melted if you leave them out in the sun. So read them, stick them in your box, or put them on your wall, whatever you're gonna do with them. But don't put them in a tanning bed, or else they're not gonna look cool. And then the Joker #1, which is one I was probably anticipating the most. Honestly, out of my books, I liked it, but it was a pretty average Joker story. It was entertaining. It gave you like a piece of his origin, but it's another one of those like, is he telling the truth? With a Joker origin, you can always, a fail-safe is you can always think like, is he telling you the truth, or is he just telling you something to entertain you at the time? Because it is him kind of like telling the story, as the book goes on. Like he's actually
there's a new facet on how he got the white skin in that one. Based on this version of his origin that he's telling.
Absolutely, and I thought it was a fun, nice story. It was probably like a B Joker story. I thought it was entertaining.
Yeah, some decent stuff so far. Mine really, I'll start from the bottom and work my way up. Relic, which was Green Lantern's tie-in, this new villain Really don't know anything about him, but he's now coming into the Green Lantern universe, and we've already seen that he's got the Lightsmiths, who are the current wielders of the colored Green Lantern Guard, the Blue Lanterns, the Indigo Lanterns, the White Lantern, Kyle Rayner, and et cetera, et cetera. So this essentially tells the story of why he hates the Lightsmiths, going back to the original days of the forming of the lanterns and how all of the emotional spectrum got contained into lanterns. So you learn a little more about that history. Also by Robert Venditti, the regular scribe of Green Lantern, and since Relic is coming in the next Green Lantern arc, it looks like they're really trying to pump him up here. And at the end, you are still left with the same confrontation the last Green Lantern issue left us with. Which they're teasing that he's going to kill all of those guys. I don't know, but maybe he is. There's a lot of lanterns out there, so maybe they're going to be thinning the herd. I don't know. Got a little bit of insight into Relic, but still a lot more to go. I like this one okay, but I'd say it was probably the weakest of the four. Then I had The Creeper, number 23.1. This was a Justice League Dark tie-in. And this one was by Ann Nocenti, was the writer, and Dan DiDio actually co-wrote it. The Creeper, who I was familiar with just by his physical presence. I've seen him on the cover of comics for years. I've always kind of snickered at him. But in this case, we find out that he's actually like this demonic spirit. And if you've read any of the Katana miniseries, but even going back to like Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey, where she's made some appearances, she has the sword that has her husband's soul trapped in it, allegedly. Well, there's a whole lot more to it, and you actually find out that the Creeper lives in there as well. He ate her husband's soul, and when the sword is broken, he escapes. So that's really what that's about. Kind of a spooky character, could be cool. It was just, it was very light on the story, very much on the...
And the city, and the city?
Nocenti.
I just called her a place. She's probably the second most hated DC Comics writer next to Scott Lobdell, I do believe, so it's nice to see at least there's some decent work there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it. It didn't set my world on fire either, though.
Dan DiDio, probably the most hated person in DC Comics. I did see a great tweet, though, about when people were getting really mad about, the changes and stuff, and immediately, DiDio was the one who was getting all the flack, and Jim Lee just, nobody said anything to Jim Lee, like, hey, make your editors stay away from, like, the writers. Like, they were all going after somebody everybody was asking about that, and then, I can't remember who, but somebody posted a quote where they were like, they're like, why are people mad at DiDio and not Jim Lee? It's like, Jim Lee is a national treasure. DiDio's just a dude. And I think that sums it up.
Could be.
A dude that was very entertaining on the Kevin Smith Fat Man on Batman podcast, I have to say.
Yeah, he was. I enjoyed
He's very likable there. I don't know him.
No, not familiar with him by name, but...
seems very likable in his interview with Kevin Smith.
Yes. Well, then moving on to mine, The Flash, number 23.1, Gorilla Grodd, number 1.
You're trying to sneak in that gorilla there in your point 1. I saw what happened. 23-point glurns.
No, still Dan, Swedish Chef did not come and take over. Just so you know. I'm actually having a hard time finding out who the hell the fucking creative team was on this one. I don't see them credited anywhere in the book. But
I think that happened on a few of these books.
It was a sweet book. I don't know who to give the props to.
Who to give props, yes.
What you learned is after the guerrillas had been defeated in Central City, they had started working with the people led by Solivar, and Grodd kind of took a back seat, and well, the shit happens, and he busts out and goes apeshit crazy with no Flash around to stop him.
It was Buccellato.
Oh, it was? Okay, so yes,
Makes
there
sense.
you go, right? That one was one of the few that was at the end. But yeah, Brian Buccellato, regular contributor to the Flash Monthly. You really find out Gorilla Grodd is on a warpath, and it's not good for the citizens of Central City, so going to find out more what goes on there. Looks like they said that one was to be continued in the Forever Evil Rogues miniseries, so you might want to check that out.
Had the classic line, kneel before Grodd, in it.
Yeah.
That's a big pop.
That's a winner. And he killed Solivar, man. That was cold.
Solivar!
That was cold. Killed his gorilla brother. But he did eat his father's brain to become King Grodd in the origin issue last year, so.
So you get a shout out to Superman, a shout out to Temple of Doom, all sorts of nice shout outs.
Yeah.
To Planet of the Apes. They're all here,
It's
folks.
one nasty ape. And then my personal favorite of the Villains Month #1s. This was the Justice League of America tie-in. Justice League of America 7.1 or Deadshot #1. You get a really nice summarized look at the origin of Floyd Lawton, about how his life was ruined by chance. You see a very
Weren't
awesome...
they all?
Yeah, right. You see an awesome origin story of him just as a kid. Comes to find out there's like these drug dealers that live next door to them in their apartment, and these guys come in to fucking take them out one night, and they end up, the bullets go through the wall and kill Deadshot's entire family. So that's what sets him off on the path to being an assassin. And he doesn't take the Batman route. He decides to go the cold-blooded route, and he becomes a master marksman. He never misses. You learn about exactly how he hones his accuracy as the world's greatest sniper and assassin. And this was just everything that I hoped Villains Month would be. A little something new, a little new insight into the character, but like a nice summary of what they're about and what drives them and where they're going. And this just laid Deadshot out. Like, it's one of the best representations of him ever, actually, in my opinion. And I've been a fan of Deadshot for a long time. This was written by Matt Kent, who does the Martian Manhunter backups, normally in JLA, and will be taking over as full-time writer when Jeff Johns leaves the book.
He's an up-and-comer, does a lot of good work.
So he's gotten my vote, man. I am on board and a fan of that guy.
DC needs to lock him down.
Yeah, they really should give him an exclusive deal if you're listening to DC. I know you are. I know Dan DiDio had to take time out of his busy schedule deflecting hate tweets to relax and listen to Getchyapulls, because we don't hate you, Dan. We don't hate you at all. You're all right with us, man.
We don't know you.
No. And then, of course, the cap of Villains Month was Forever Evil #1. And this is really the book that sets the whole theme of Villains Month. We learned last week at the end of Trinity War that it was, in fact, the Pandora's box was not a curse. It did not house the deadly sins. It was actually a dimensional doorway, and it brought the crime syndicate from the alternate Earth. If you've seen Crisis on Two Earths, the Justice League animated movie, that's about the crime syndicate. They've appeared in so many. You look at the Justice League animated series, you look at Smallville, they've been there in all of those incarnations of DC. So if you're not familiar with them, there's plenty of old material out there to get familiar.
Sweet Fig update. They'd previously announced there was going to be Crime Syndicate figures a few months ago, which everybody was like, oh shit, they must be showing up somewhere, which was, a bit of a, could have possibly been a spoiler if they're going to show up at the end of the book, but they'd only announced the 3, but then this week they added the extra Crime Syndicate figure that's going to come with, fucking whatever her name is, Atomica, is that what she's going by?
Yes.
Yes, so they added a 4th fig that comes with her as a little mini that comes with it, so that was pretty badass. If you're a fig guy, Mattel's dropping all the licenses like some real pricks, so DC Collectibles, where the cool figs are at. If you're listening, give me something free. But anyways, back to Pulls.
Yeah, this Forever Evil #1 sets the tone. So you got the Crime Syndicate, which if you don't know, after all of those reference points I've given you, it's the evil version of the Justice League. It's Ultraman, Superwoman, Owlman, Johnny Quick, and the Power Ring is their version of the Green Lantern, and they possess all of the opposite traits.
Their Aquaman's dead.
yeah, he died walking through the fucking doorway. But this issue is crazy. This is just about the Crime Syndicate rallying all the villains together and the Justice League being taken out. We don't know if they're dead. It's kind of left up to chance. The Flash was left in a really bad way at the end, so, there's a possibility that he might be dead, and Cyborg is, like, super fucked up. So
Yeah, he's messed up.
we know those two guys are in a bad way. We don't really know about everybody else, but we know that that those guys might not be coming back in the short term anyway. It's comics, so they'll be back,
Yeah.
but at least for now, they might be dead. But the really big shocker in this one, spoiler alert, go ahead and turn it off now. Nightwing, Dick Grayson, one of the favorite heroes here of Get Your Pulls, one of the sentimental favorites, captured by the crime syndicate in his attempt to take Lex Luthor in, outed to the entire world that he is Dick Grayson. What ramifications is this going to have on the DC universe?
We'll find out in about 7 months. It's Forever Evil's a monthly, and there's 7 parts to it, and the rest of the books aren't going to catch up until when Forever Evil number 7 comes out.
Oh, this is going to be
this is a future event. Yeah,
world shrouded in darkness for a while here.
Yeah, we're not going to know until probably the beginning of next year what actually is coming from it. But I thought it was cool. Thought they had a great explanation for it. A bunch of people, of course, freaked out and read online. They were like, well, to their knowledge, the crime syndicate's taken out all the Justice League, which has most of the heroes on Earth, but there are some more. And who would you consider probably the top dog out of the non-Justice League members? Would be Nightwing. So you take him out, then you fuck everything up. Also interesting how they definitely place Luthor as if he's going to be kind of the hero in this story.
It really
he's
looks
the one
that
that's
way.
going to try to round up the guys to go against the crime syndicate and maybe
they've
keep
got the
things
crime
from going.
syndicate and the secret society, so they've merged all the villains together so far. But you can clearly see the writings on the wall that maybe all of these villains ain't on board, and that it may be the original DC villains that have to band together to defeat the crime syndicate.
Yeah, so it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, so Villains Month's off to a rocking start, man. Like, it's unique and it's fucking.
Absolutely.
It's got my attention.
We'll blow through a few of these pulls. Had FF number 11, got it a week late. It was cool. It's still for action writing it. It was zany and fun as always. I haven't made a final decision on it. If you'll be hearing reviews from that from me, if Todd reappears, and I don't think he's dropping FF, so I might let it ride. Fantastic Four is off the list, but FF is, I might let it ride because it is still interesting. So you jump over to the Hellfire Saga Part 5, which also a week late, but was worth it. It was really cool. On the end of this story, and Wolverine the X-Men, and as you would imagine, the Hellfire Academy didn't kill everybody. The X-Men came in, kicked their ass, sent them all kind of on their way. Mystique came in, picked up the rest of the bad kids and took her to her school, over to her and Cyclops' school to be part of that team. And then the big reveal was at the end, which is going to be the launching pad for Amazing X-Men, was a part of the big ways that the heroes got saved were by the Bamps. And when Brew comes back to normal, takes a bite out of one of the Bamps, and something happens to him where he regains his senses and is no longer a wild animal again. He's the Brew that we all loved in, the first 20 issues, whatever, before he got shot of Wolverine the X-Men. But somehow when he does that, he sends the Bamps, trying to get away from him, Bamf off into another dimension, and in that dimension, Nightcrawler's hanging around.
Yeah,
and so that's going to be...
that made me happy.
Yeah, they did that in a really cool way. He was wearing a really sweet white hoodie, which is pretty cool looking. It looked like he borrowed Shazam's fucking hoodie to wear in that dimension. And and that's what Amazing X-Men is going to be about, is now Brew somehow kind of remembers when he bit into that Bamf that, they may know where Nightcrawler is, and tips Wolverine off, so that's what that series is going to be about, them going to find a Nightcrawler. So
I thought that was just like the perfect, if you just started from Wolverine and the X-Men number 1 and read to there, that would be one hell of a, that's a ride. They closed up a lot of storylines that they'd had open, and that was really made me happy. I really enjoyed it. As far as the Jason Aaron side of the X-Men universe, really couldn't have told a more fun story, I don't think, overall. How many issues in was that, by the way?
That is issue number 35.
So 35 issues worth of really awesome storytelling.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, that really did bring the whole thing full circle. They brought back around, now the school's back to normal. They decided, gave you like 2 pages of maybe we should shut the school down. Nah, we won't. We're still here. So it was a great end of that story. Which brings us on to the next big X-Men event.
That's right. Battle of the Atom. We'll just go in sequence here because that was the last issue, and then now into the next one. Essentially, and you've seen this in the solicits probably already, but there is a situation where the X-Men from the 60s have been brought to the present. That's mainly what All New X-Men has been about. And the implications of this could be catastrophic for the future of the X-Men world, but they know that Charles Xavier's dream did not come to pass. So Beast brought them to the present to try to fix this. Well, we find out that a team of X-Men from the future come in and say, no, you've got to send them back to the past because you're fucking things up even more. So, as usual, hated, feared, and misunderstood, and can't catch a damn break are the X-Men. But part 1 was an interesting lead-in, and part 2 just continued the story, which you have right there.
Yeah, part 2, big spoilers if you didn't see it. Basically what happens here is we've got all of the X-Men. See, part 1, did they fight the Sentinels? That's correct?
Yes.
Yeah, part 1, they had a huge fight with some Sentinels. Our time Cyclops came in and just started ripping them all to shreds like a can opener. Showed you that Sentinels don't do nothing to him these days. And then the next issue is a whole lot of them debating what the fuck to do. They've got the X-Men from the future trying to figure out who they should trust, if they should trust them, if they are who they're saying that they are and everything. You get the first one, you got to see there was an Xavier-looking guy. You get to find out that he's Xavier's grandson who looks just like him. You get to find out who the crew from the future is. You got a future Deadpool that's all fucked up. Actually, one of the Runaways is in their future X-Men crew, which is kind of cool. And then it's a whole lot of sitting around and debating what to do. Then eventually Jean Grey says, fuck this. Her and Cyclops say, we're getting the fuck out of here. Old school versions. And then you've got the masked character for the future X-Men. And it's like...
Who's Zorn.
Yes, who's like, you can't do it. It's going to fuck everything up. You got to get rid of them. They're like, how the fuck... how do you know? And then takes off the mask to reveal it's future Jean Grey from the 60s that's currently in our present in the future.
How's
that's
that
right.
for a mind
How's
fuck?
that?
And here's something cool that I didn't mention from the first issue, but it's actually what brought that future team of X-Men to the present was that the 60s version of Cyclops during this Sentinel fight goes to protect Jean and gets shot in the back by a Sentinel, and it kills him, and modern day Scott Summers fucking disappears.
Yes.
And everybody shits their pants.
He gets back to the future for sure there for a minute.
But because one of Scott's team is a healer, he uses his powers to find out that not only is he a healer, he's a fucking necromancer. He brought that motherfucker back from the dead. So, not just Christopher is his name, actually, Christopher. He not only has healing powers, but yes, resurrection powers. We've got a resurrector on the Scott Summers X-Men team. So, some interesting revelations.
So that's pretty cool. And yeah, that'll be awesome. And then we'll get our next doses of that over the next couple weeks. So it's an event like we like it. Looks like 1 or 2 parts are coming out every week. So it'll be over, probably by the end of the month. And we'll get a resolution. And it's shaping out. Starting off good. I mean, Infinity started off great. That's starting off great. DC looks, to be starting off great. So after last year's summer for shit events, this year's summer looks like we're gonna have some good events. So
Yeah, been some redemption for sure.
Yes. So I guess I'll knock out my other 2 indie books. I guess Vertigo, not quite indie, but Trillium #2, written and drawn by Jeff Lemire, and it was really good.
Yeah, it was.
It's a crazy futuristic love story. You get to find out our 2 main characters. Trying to basically spend most of the issue explaining like where they're from and what's been happening and trying to figure out how to talk to each other. They don't understand each other's language. By the end of it, they figure it out, and then you find out, they both get some information on each other. And read it yourself. That's pretty much my explanation. Satellite Sam #3. I wasn't as sold on Satellite Sam as I first thought I would be, but now I am, because it got a lot more interesting at issue #3.
Yeah.
It's really cool. If you haven't read it, it's a Matt Fraction's story. It's about Satellite Sam, a TV character from the 50s that, was on an old El Cheapo fucking TV show, like a fucking, like, what, like a Buck Rogers or fucking like
Yeah, really showing the sleazy side of television
TV,
in the
yes.
50s was pretty awesome.
Much like wrestling promotion, how they're just trying to like sneak out as many dimes and pennies as they can and make as much money, and how all the people involved in it are the same way that you would imagine like the people are now. How now when you catch fucking you know one of your favorite actors like with a hooker, you freak out, but the way that it probably was is it's been that way forever. They just were able to hide it better back then. And that's kind of what it's about. You find out Satellite Sam, this wholesome, lovable guy from a kid's show, had a crazy dark side where his son finds all these pictures of all these women and, dressed up in bondage and lingerie and all this stuff. And then, in this issue, his son goes and finds one of the girls that he found a picture of, tries to get some info from her, and then they start kind of investigating together. You get the promised sex and violence that were promised by Fraction when this thing started, that it was going to be an adult comic, and this issue definitely delivered on that. So it became a lot more interesting, this issue, to me. And now it's firmly on the pull list. So we'll be looking forward to what's coming soon with it. Not to mention, I do believe next week's Sex Criminals #1 comes out, so we'll get a lot more of mature readers only Fraction.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. That Satellite Sam, if nothing else, there's not another book like it out there for sure.
No, absolutely not.
It's unique. Got two more to knock out here, both from the Marvel Universe. Infinity #2, and the Infinity event still continues. About what I expected with a #2. It was an extremely strong lead-in, and a very strong #2, though the plot development was now getting to the next stage. It was regrouping after getting their asses handed to them in the first issue.
Yeah, it was a lot less happening. It's probably going to be that issue that when you look at it, how many parts is Infinity? 6. You're probably it's going to be that issue that you look back and go, yeah, maybe it could have been 5.
Yeah,
but
right.
They needed to sell 6. So
Absolutely. But still some strong revelations here. The new Avengers, the Illuminati, are summoned, and the Inhumans, and what's left of the Avengers after that initial attack by the Builders, they all sort of get together and try to come up with a game plan, because they know now that Thanos is coming after Earth, and there's no one there to protect it except for Tony Stark, who's, he's basically a man alone. He was left behind to protect the Earth, and rough shit's about to happen if they don't do something. And also, the other big revelation is that Thanos has a son, and that is the reason he's going to Earth. Is that going to be revealed as an existing character?
Who's it going to be?
That's a big thing there, and I think that's probably going to be one of the big reveals in this Infinity.
What if it's just someone that you hate? What if they, like, construe some crazy thing, and it's like, oh, you don't hate him, but, like, what if it was, like, Gambit? I'd be so mad if it was Gambit. That seems very unlikely, but we'll see.
No, I had no idea Thanos was my daddy.
Yes. I'm trying to think of someone who looks kind of like Thanos, and I can't put my thing on it. What if it was Beast? What if he fucked Beast Mom and got that gene in him?
Yeah, this is why he's like fucking evolves every 5 years into something different.
Yeah, and you find out in the future that somehow he looks even crazier, future Beast. Things when he comes back, you're like, it's like he's like, have you developed ram's horns? Like, what's going on with you, Beast?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I don't even really have a pick.
It's quite interesting, though.
Hulkling, maybe, only because he's allegedly part Skrull, and the Skrulls have those same divots in their chin that Thanos has. Like,
maybe.
I'm really grasping at straws here.
Or they could just go, like, super ridiculous, and it would just be, like, a dude.
It's classic Avengers villain, the Purple Man.
Yes. It's Nick Fury. You're like, what? What, Marvel? What are you trying to do to me?
It's Thor.
And then Samuel L. Jackson in fucking Avengers 3 is like, that's my fucking dad. It's all to set that up. I just cracked the code. It's all to set up, Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury be like, God damn it, it's my dad.
Well, on to the pick of the week. Really interesting when you look at this, because we just spent 11 issues of 3 time periods of Thor teaming up to fight the God Butcher, one of the greatest villains ever created for Thor. Happened this year by our boy Jason Aaron. So he He gives you the drama, the bloodshed, the fighting, the religious commentary. Like, he really knocks it out of the park on so many levels in that 11 issues. The most metal comic on the stands, it was. And then we get Thor number 12, which I wouldn't say it got me to that level, but if a Thor issue could ever bring a tear to somebody's eye, this one could. Very heartwarming. I mean, just a touching issue to show you, like, the other side of Thor, why he's really a hero, you know, and what makes him a hero beyond just smiting frost giants. You see, of course, it's bookended with a little bit about the Thor from the past, and at the end, the Thor from the future, but the main story is kind of like Matt Fraction's Hawkeyes. What is he doing when he's not fighting big Avengers battles? And it's just a series of Thor going around doing heroic acts.
It's basically the equivalent of, like, if this was like a 50s comic, he would be helping old ladies across the street and getting cats out of trees, but he's doing things that are more badass because he's Thor.
Yeah, he's befriended this guy who's on death row, and as part of his last meal, Thor flies to this galaxy far away and gets him the fruit of the Candelar tree, and it's the last one in existence, and he lets this guy on his last meal eat this, and he stays with him until he dies. You know, the guy apparently had atoned for his crimes and was going to face his punishment like a man, and Thor respected that and stayed there with him to the end. He goes to the homeless kids, the street urchins, and brings them these exotic beasts that he's slain in Asgard and cooks them for them, and they have a magnificent feast that he goes and hangs out with the disabled veterans and the orphanages and the nuns and the Buddhist monks. He goes to the Shield Cadets Ball and dances with one of the cadets who was apparently in love with Thor, and it was a special favor called in by Captain America.
That would definitely be on an MTV show if it happened in real life.
Yeah. And then, of course, they top it all off with him paying a visit to his old love interest, Jane Foster, who we find out is on her deathbed with cancer. She's bald from the chemo treatments. She's got a new guy who loves her and takes care of her. So Thor's not trying to butt in on that, but just for what she's meant to him, he took her up to the moon and let her watch the sunrise. And, you know, like, stupid, yeah, sure, but fucking, I mean,
man,
that
if
shit.
you were a superhero, it'd be a lot easier to romance a woman. I'm just going to say. I'm just saying.
But, I mean, hard to find a single issue this year. Maybe one of those Animal Man issues, but that really had the heart and emotion that this did. This is one of those things that makes you think comics are something more sometimes, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, we've been preaching for months and months that Thor is the most underrated of the Marvel Now comics, and it might be the best one, and a lot of people don't put it in the category, but it's great, and that was great, and shows Jason Aaron's range. It was great in a whole different way than all the rest of them. Just been these epic, like,
yeah,
you know, like,
11
I wish
of issues.
I
If
wish,
Thor was Game of Thrones mixed with fucking thrash metal.
yeah, it's like if Thor was a show on HBO, this is the story they would be telling. And, you know, that right there was something totally different and, you know, great, even though it's different.
Like,
So.
you humanize this god and just, like I said, just show why he's a hero. And it was just fucking, it was overwhelmingly awesome, man. I can't say enough great things about that.
Yeah, it was really good. But that's all the pulls for this week. We had plenty. Next week we got a ton again.
I've got like 8. I can't even.
Yeah, I have no idea what I have. I know I have Sex Criminals #1.
Bunch of villains.
Excited for that. I believe we have Walking Dead next week.
We do. We'll have another X-Men story, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll have. I believe that I'm going to be on the hook for X in the City this week to get us the next part of Captain Atom. If I wasn't in trouble with any sort of female listeners already, calling that book X in the City probably would put it over the top.
Put it over the top.
But yes, say that in the most beloved way. I mean, there's a bunch of X-Men villains hanging out doing stuff. So what do you want? A bunch of X-Men chicks. But anyways, got that. So until next week, try to live your life with context. Pick you up some 3D covers. Don't put them in the sun and get your pulls.